Hello everyone, this is Grandmaster Damian Lemos here for iChess.net. Welcome to this new video. This is actually the second video I do on this subject, the upcoming match, World Championship match between Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana. So, if you want to know my opinion, you can check the first video I made. You'll find it on the YouTube channel. It is going to be a tough match. I think chances are 50-50. Magnus, he is the best in the world. We have many reasons to prove that. On the other hand, Caruana, he's been consistently improving over the years, and he has no weaknesses, no leaks. His opening preparation is great, and I think if someone deserves to challenge Magnus, it is Fabiano. So in this video we'll continue analyzing games between these two chess giants. So this game is from Bill in 2011. Carlsen was playing white, Caruana was playing black. So Magnus, this was several years ago, but Magnus, he was already at 2800, so he plays e4. Nowadays I think he's more of a d4 English or knight f3 player, but we might see e4 games as well. We know he handles all sort of positions. Caruana plays e5. Okay, so far natural moves, knight c6, and here the first slight surprise, d4, the Scotch game. We know bishop c4, the Italian, or bishop b5, the Spanish, they are more likely to happen. But for some reason, I think in this match, we'll see a Scotch game in one of the 12 games we have. Because here, this is solid for both sides, but I think there is not much theory compared to the Italian or the Spanish, and we might see some surprises, some preparation in the Scotch. From both sides. I think Fabiano is capable of playing this as white, and so is Magnus. So okay, e takes e4, knight takes. We know the main line here is knight to f6, but black plays bishop c5. Knight takes c6, a solid approach by white. Bishop e3 is also playable. Knight takes e6. Here queen f6 is the main move. Mating threat on f2. He's also trying to take back on c6, of course, and we don't have knight d4. I mean, we do, but he just takes and he gets his piece back. So queen f6 here, usually white plays queen f3. He can take, and we get a queen-less position most of the times, where white has an edge because of the pawn structure. D takes c6 is also possible, but it is fair to say black has enough resources to equalize. In fact, Magnus plays this line a lot as black too. So queen f6 happens to be the main line. In this game, black takes on c6, bishop d3, and the aggressive queen h4. Apart from the mating threat on f2, it makes sense for black to play queen h4 here because white, he doesn't have a knight on the king side to protect. So that is why he's playing queen h4. White plays the solid queen e2 and knight to e7. Well, black, he's got a clear plan on the king side. He wants to castle. And here Magnus plays knight to c3. I think this is the kind of position that Magnus plays very well. Like having a better pawn structure, almost no weaknesses, and well, a small advantage like this is sometimes enough. I mean, black in this position I think he's fine, but if imagine we play an endgame, this pawn structure is something we can exploit. And I think Magnus, he's the best in the world at doing so. So this sort of positions is what he's going to look for in this match. Okay, black castles, bishop to e3, trading black's most important piece, and we are also flexible as white. We don't know if we are going to castle kingside or queenside. So black plays bishop b6, I like it. If we take on b6, then we fix his pawn chain, so here we are not going to take on b6. As white, we have to decide whether to castle queenside or kingside. And I think this also depends on the style. Most of the aggressive players, they would castle queenside, and then they would think about fighting a kingside attack. And positional players, they tend to castle kingside in this position, and okay, the game continues. We can win later by positional means. I think what Magnus played here is the most accurate, because he already has weaknesses. And if we castle queenside, this is also a possibility. But then d5, the queenside is sort of open, so black has ideas there. And for us, it's not easy to advance our kingside pawns. So I get the feeling this is interesting, but I think castling short is what that position requires. And we also know Magnus, he prefers positional stuff. He's great at tactics, of course, he's the best. But when it comes to opening systems, when it comes to middle game, he tends to play quiet positions, and he usually overplay his opponents. So, kingside castle, black plays with d5. Black, he needs to claim space in the center, also by playing d5. With the threats coming, we have to take. Somehow here he can fix his pawn chain if he wants to. But this is the other surprise in this game. Fabiano takes on d5 with the knight. C takes d5 is also possible, and I bet this is what most of us would play. C takes d5, but it is a bit scary. I mean, I can play bishop takes b6, okay, a takes b6. I think everything is under control, but it does look a bit scary for black. I could play something like rook to e1. Black is still safe because he can play bishop e6. But this is easier said than done. When you're playing the real game as black, and you see things like knight b5, f4, when you see queen h4 is the only one protecting the knight on e7, it is tough to know this is safe for black when you're playing the real game. That is why knight takes d5 makes more sense. At least the knight is not hanging anymore. And okay, if white takes, he can still repair his pawn chain. Not an easy position for white, because we know he's got weaknesses, but at the same time, it's not easy for us to find the move. Our bishop on e3 is under attack. He's got ideas like bishop g4. He's trying to take on e3. He can also take on c3, thus destroying our pawn chain. And if we play something like bishop takes b6, we are helping him a lot, because now his pawn structure improves drastically. Not to mention he can consider maneuvers like this, and suddenly he's attacking a lot on the king side. So this move Magnus plays is very precise. It is tough because we are giving black the initiative. We know it's not easy to play a move like bishop d2. We don't have a threat. But we are stopping knight takes e3, and we are also protecting our pawn structure. If he now takes on c3, I'll take back with my bishop. Caruana plays bishop d4. This looks like an interesting try as well. Our queen is in trouble and we cannot play f3. This is a good move to consider. He wins another tempi, bringing the rook to the game. I can play queen c4, and I get the feeling black's threats are over, and now I'm ready to continue developing my pieces. As white, I keep the only advantage I have, which is my better pawn structure. So I'm pretty sure Caruana saw this, and that is why he decided to play bishop d4. Well, again, I think black here, he's putting maximum pressure to us, white, because now if we take on d5, again we improve his pawn chain. If we leave the knight on c3, he can now take, and he'll destroy our pawn chain one way or the other. So it's not easy at all. If we ask the engines, we see knight takes d5 is the first option, and then they also suggest moves like rook a v1. Well, this makes sense as well. If he takes, I can take with the pawn, with the bishop, and suddenly my rook is playing. Yes, my pawns are weird, but my rook on b1 is already playing. So this is interesting. Magnus played the human move rook a e1, and I think this is even better than rook a b1, because now my rook is playing. Yes, he can take on c3, but then I win a tempi, and in practice this works much better. I mean, rook a b1 is way too passive. When we play a real game, we need to find active continuations. So rook a e1 is just fine. Here black plays knight to b4. Well, this move is not... I wouldn't even consider this, because now I keep the bishop pair as white. If he plays this move, I can take. Suppose he plays bishop b6 or bishop c5. Yes, my pawns are weak, so are his, but the difference here is made by my pieces. White pieces are much more active than black's, and I can start with moves like queen f3 or even queen e8. This looks a bit weird, but I think this is working. He cannot take because we mate him, and I also try playing queen takes c6. He plays bishop b7. Well, the bishop is a bit passive. If he plays c5, then bishop b6 is locked up, and in the meantime he cannot occupy the only open file at the moment. Rook d8 runs into bishop g5, so we definitely have an initiative here as white. It's like Magnus found a way to stop knight takes c3, and he's doing so with active play. So black plays knight b4. This happens to be precise from black. Queen e4, another nice move by white. Think about this. He's got weak pawns, so we want to play an endgame. If we get an endgame, then we'll have much better chances. So we try trading as much as we can. Queen takes. Here bishop takes. I can also take with the knight, but then he takes on d3, worst case scenario, and his bishop pair is way too powerful, not to mention b2 is hanging, so queen takes e4, bishop takes, and bishop a6. We have to be extremely careful here as white, and of course it's even more difficult to see this beforehand. The only move we have is knight to e2, to stop bishop takes f1. At the same time, we attack the bishop on d4 and the knight on b4. So black plays bishop c5, a3. All we have to do here is get rid of black's active pieces. So he plays knight to d5, b4. We have to advance. It looks like we are weakening our queen side, but this is our best chance. Again, we have to get rid of his active pieces. So he plays bishop d6. I wonder if this is an option, bishop b6. But then I can at least play a4. This is one of my threats. This bishop is trapped, and b5 is a threat as well. We see knight d5 is hanging. That means he cannot take on b5. So he plays bishop d6, and in this position, which is a tough one, by the way, Magnus shows us why he is the best in the world. Bishop d6. Let's see what is black trying to do. If we play a random move, he's going to play the simple rook e8, maybe this rook to e8, this one on f8 to keep f5 under control. He can even think about doubling up on the e file, and the pressure is too much. Most of us would think about playing bishop d3 as our first choice, but then, well, we get rid of the pin, but he also gets rid of his only weakness, and it is fair to say in this position, if we both play well, it's likely to be a draw. No weaknesses for black. I mean, this might be a weakness, but so is d3, so this is likely to be drawish. So bishop d3, we lose all the advantage as white, but if we don't play bishop d3, well, he's going to play rook f8, and again, we are under pressure. Imagine we play a move like this, we are under a pin for the rest of the game, and of course, this is not comfortable for us. So, Magnus, in this position, plays the positional sacrifice, knight to d4. Yes, we lose the rook on f1, but in return, we have full control of light squares, and black, he doesn't have many open files for his rooks. So, this positional sacrifice happens to be the best way of improving our position. We cannot deal with the pin, so knight d4, now he has to take, otherwise we simply take on c6, so bishop takes, king takes, another key move, rook takes is a huge mistake because now he wins a tempi attacking our bishop, so king takes f1, and now no matter what he plays, he's going to lose the c6 pawn. In the game, black tries knight to b6. But suppose he plays knight to e7, I can take. Well, he's likely to take. And this position, the main problem for black is he cannot play rook e8. And little by little, I can try advancing my queenside pawns. And yeah, worst case scenario, if somehow he attacks my bishop on c6, I can play something like b5, and that bishop on c6 is going to be there for the rest of the game. So this knight d4, as I said, this is what makes Magnus a next level player. I mean, maybe in this position this sacrifice is not super tough to find, but still, he plays moves like this quite often, so that is why he's the best. Okay, king takes, knight to b6. Black, if he's given another move, he would play something like a5, or yeah, something to open that position as soon as possible, but we play knight takes c6. He's in trouble on the queen side. Yes, he can occupy the e file now, but that's not really an issue for us. So rook to e8, and now another key move, a4. Not easy to play a4 as white, because we have to see what happens if knight takes a4. Now we'll get back to this move in a second. Another move we can consider is this, for instance. Try to keep the king side well protected, just in case. I don't think he's going to take on h2, but just in case, this or this, just to make king side moves and improve our position, we can consider this. But then we give black a reason to play active moves like knight c4. So let's see why he played a4. First move we have to look at is, moving knight c6 somewhere, because rook a8, after all, is hanging. So I'm pretty sure Magnus saw knight e7 check. Now if rook takes, bishop takes, well, he takes, king takes. The issue here is that knight b6 is still guarding a8, and here black wins a piece. However, if we play a4, he cannot take, because if he does, I play knight e7, if rook takes, bishop takes a8, the knight is no longer there, and yes, he got his pawn back, but we have the bishop pair, which is stronger. So if knight takes a4, knight e7, he can also consider bishop takes, but okay, I take on a8, and this position, we know the bishop is way much stronger than his knight, and also my rook on e7 is much more active than his rook. So with all that, I think white has a clear advantage. So another great move by Magnus. He cannot take, and a5 is coming anytime soon. That knight on b6 is in trouble. He plays king f8, a5, knight c4, and bishop c1. It is super tough to play as black because his rooks are passive, and we have the queen side under control. So this position ends up being a technical one, and if black doesn't find any counterplay soon, he'll be losing material, or yeah, basically he cannot fix the issues on the diagonals. My bishop e4 is way too powerful. What I was trying to say is, if he doesn't find any active files for his rooks, he'll end up playing a passive game. So after bishop c1, here I think this is a good moment to pause the video. Imagine you're playing black and try finding the best continuation. Let's pretend this is a real game and you have to make your move as black. We are not looking for any winning variation. We know we are in trouble and we have to find the best practical chance to survive this. And I'm saying survive, we are up an exchange and still we are in some trouble. So if you want to pause the video, you can do it. I'll do a 10-15 seconds pause and then I'll continue talking. Okay, so in this position after bishop c1, white is playing quietly, there's no danger, b4 is under control. Most of my pieces are doing great as white, and as black, as I was saying, we need to find active files for our rook. Caruana played a6, which happens to be a passive move, but yes, his at least stopping things related to knight takes a7, and maybe he wanted to stop b5. We'll see how the game continues, but Black's best move was to play f5. He needs to sacrifice another pawn, but at least he gets what he's looking for, open files for his rooks. Maybe you thought about this move, but the problem is, if you play this, f5 is no longer a threat. Black has to be extremely careful with moves like bishop h6 and bishop d5. Here, for instance, white can play the quiet c3, and if this, I can check, and no matter where the king goes, I play bishop d5, and of course, black loses. So, their reaction for black was playing f5. Here white, he can consider playing bishop d3, bishop d5, but let's say the best move is taking on f5, check, king takes. Here I can play rook e8 for instance, I win a tempi with check, this, and okay, this position is not easy for black, but he can try trading as much as he can, and it is fair to say he's got drawing chances in this position. Here, for instance, if I play this, well, bishop takes b4, and suddenly he also has mating threats, so this is quite dangerous for white. Let's see this again, f5, bishop takes, trades, king takes, rook e8, king here, knight e5. White, he can consider bishop e4. And this position I'm pretty confident black with accurate play can hold this. White, he looks a bit better, but because of my queenside pawns. But the rook is a rook. The rook is the rook, and he's up this change, so we cannot underestimate that. So it's easier said than done, as I was saying. At home you can find these variations, but in the real game, feeling the pressure, playing against Magnus, having to defend as black, is not so simple, and after bishop c1, Caruana played a6, f4, he's trying to stop knight to e5, here black played rook e6, again missing an opportunity, not f5 though. Now f5, I think I can just play a move like this, and his king is in a weird situation. His knight on c4 is trapped too, check, king f2, and now we understand why Magnus played f4. The problem with f4 is that black has an amazing resource here, which is knight to e3 check. I mean, if Caruana didn't see it, I mean, who can? Knight e3 check, if bishop takes, rook takes e4, and suddenly black is not only equalizing, but getting a much better position. Everything is hanging for white. I lost my light squares bishop. So knight e3, only move is rook takes, bishop takes f4, and the problem for white here is that I cannot keep both bishops. The best line is rook f3, bishop takes e1, bishop d5, f6, and I don't know. Black cannot activate his rooks, but pawn-wise it's equal, and he's got the extra exchange. So here black, he's doing just fine. This knight to e3 was tough. And again, this is the problem of playing a passive position against Magnus. It's easy to miss resources like knight e3 check. So f4, Caruana played rook e6. Here the problem is white played this to stop things like knight to e5, and now he simply goes after knight c4, bishop d5, rook f6, this I should take, rook to e8, king f2, and unfortunately for black there is no square for his knight. So after bishop d5, rook to f6, and believe it or not, here white plays a move and black resigns. After rook f6, well, this is the first move we consider, bishop takes e4. After all, we take a piece. He plays this move though, and it's not easy to handle this situation. If we take on f4, he takes and he gets the piece back. If we play something else, he can take on c1, he can take on c6. If we move the knight, he takes on c1 with check. So taking on c4, we can delay this move a bit and play this move first. Classy move by Magnus, supporting f4. The knight doesn't have any square and we simply win. If you put this position to the ancients, you'll see they play knight takes a5, which of course is nonsense. I should take. He cannot take the open files, and 2 pieces for the rook is too much. Therefore, after rook e4, black gives up, 27 moves, and Magnus wins this game in a nice positional fashion. This knight d4 is a world-class sacrifice. Reminds me a bit of Petrosian sacrifices, positional ones. And after the pressure, and facing this pressure, black was unable to find resources like f5 here, or this knight e3 we saw in this position. So, interesting game. I think, as I said, Magnus is the best in this kind of positions, but the first game we saw Fabi winning in a quiet position as well, so after all it's tough to tell who is going to win the match. But yeah, what we'll continue doing of course is analyzing games between these two, so you can make your guesses. And okay, we'll see what happens. That's all for this video. I hope you found this interesting. I hope you could learn something. And of course, I want to see you guys during my next videos as well. Take care.